Alright, let's continue with our little op-amp schematic here. You'll notice that the resistors all have the same designation. R question mark, R question mark, R question mark, all the same. Well, Altium, if you don't change that, Altium thinks that all three of those resistors are the same. And because of how I place this, the left side of this resistor is probably pin 1, yeah. The left side of this resistor is pin 1, and the left side of that resistor is pin 1. So it would have all three of those connected together. Altium does this because I could have multiple schematics, and I might want my output resistor here to show up on the input on another schematic sheet. And if I want to know what my input impedance is, it's going to be the same as this guy's output impedance, so I can have the same resistor represented in two places. But for us, this could be a problem. So we could come over here and click on this guy and say R1. That's one way to do it. Or I could click on the resistor and go to Properties. Right there, it says R question mark. I could change it there. Or I can use a tool. So let's go to the tools here. And annotation. And we're going to annotate the schematics. Now I'll show you the more elaborate system here first. And you'll see it has some options. I can start at the top right, go across, keep going down. I can increment with a start index of 1, so R1, R2, R3. A lot of options here that you can do, and you can set all these up and then annotate your schematic. Or I can use a default up here and just say annotate my schematics quietly. And by quietly it means I'm taking the settings that I set last time, which could have been the direction it updates, or I could start with 100 or 200. Doesn't matter. In this case, I'm going to use the defaults. You could change that first setting, and that would become your default. So I'm going to say annotate schematics quietly. It says there's 4 designators requiring update. Proceed, yes. Now look, I have an R1, an R2, an R3. For some reason they call this op-amp AR1. I prefer to call my integrated circuits with a U. So I'm going to change that to U1. And then I'll save all. I always like to save everything every now and then so I don't lose my work. So let's continue with our little project. We have an input, a feedback, and output. We have no way to get signals in and out, and we have no power. So we want to make this a functional circuit. So let's go back to our components. We had miscellaneous devices. We also have miscellaneous connectors. So I'm going to go to the miscellaneous connector. Here's a miscellaneous connectors 10. Miscellaneous connectors header 2. So I'll use a header 2. That's going to be my input. So here I'm going to place my header. Now you'll notice it's connected to my mouse. I can rotate it. If I want my input to be on pin 1 and I connect it this way, then the ground is going to be on the top. I don't like that. I want to come in on pin 1 and have pin 2 ground, but I want it to line up perfectly, so I'm going to mirror my device by hitting the X key. Now I can come over here and place that. I'm going to right click to stop placing, go back to components. I'm going to use a 3-pin header, and I want the 3-pin header from my power up here. So I'll place that one, and I'm going to go back to my components and go back to the miscellaneous. Let's see, I'll use connectors, that's fine. Let's see, there's a B and C connector. The B and C connector is that round connector on the front of the oscilloscope that you plug your probe into. or maybe on the function generator. That's a B and C connector. So I'm going to click on that guy. Same thing. I want my ground to come out the bottom, so I'm going to mirror it by hitting the X key. I think you can use the Y key also, and then rotate it. There we go. And I'm going to hook that right up. There we go. Now I can move these designators around, and the comments. Like this says header 2, that says B and C. I can grab the B and C with the left mouse button and move it up here. So that's always an option. Well, let's look at our functions now. I'm going to take this input here and delete it. I'm going to take this input, and I did Control X. Control X cuts it and it's gone, but it's still in my paste. And then I'm going to paste it. Now I'm going to put it over here. There's input. I'm going to highlight that guy, copy him, and paste him here. And I'm going to wire this straight across. Makes a little more sense to have this say the input than this function. And it goes to show that you can still change things and move things and delete things and add things. So let's add power. Here's the little place ground power port up here. So I probably want to put power here and here. And I think I want the middle. I'm going to put it right here. And then I can wire this guy. Now I can take the header symbol here, move it up here, and I have some options. I clicked in there, I can say power. That's where my power comes in. So now I have a 3-pin connector here, 2 for the input, B and C for the output, 3 pins. So I probably want my positive supply, ground, and negative supply. And I could take that and run wires over here and run wires over here, but it'll probably be cleaner if I take my power port symbol, and before I place it, because I already have ground, so I'm going to hit the tab key. Remember, when I have a part connected to my mouse and I hit the tab key, I bring up the properties. Now I'm going to come over here and say, I want you to make a bar, and I want to name it, let's see, plus 9 volts DC. Alright. Well, I'm going to place this up here. Let's see. Right there looks good. And I can also place another one over here. And one here. Now you notice I have 2 plus 9 volts. So I'm going to edit this one. I'm going to call it minus 9 volts. And then I'm going to copy this guy. And I'm going to paste him down here. See, if I copy and paste, I have less chance of making mistakes by spelling something wrong. Or it's also that Altium's case sensitive, so if I do a plus 9 volts and I put the 9 as a, or the V as an uppercase and the DC as lowercase, then it all has to match, or it's going to be a different net. Now, one thing you can learn here too is watch what happens when I place this. If I highlight this guy now and drag him down, see how the wire follows with it? It already knows it's connected. So now it's wired. I'm going to wire this guy and wire this guy. Okay, now it'd be smart here. You notice I have P question mark, P question mark, P question mark. I'm going to use my tool again and say annotate quietly, update those 3, and now I have power. I have a connector coming in with my power supply and ground. I have a signal coming in on a 2-pin header. I have my signal going out on the B and C connector. I have mostly a functional circuit here. This doesn't look too bad. So if I ever want to drag my schematic around, by the way, there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts and mouse shortcuts. I can hold my right mouse button down, see how the pointer changes to a hand, and I can drag my screen around. So I can drag here, hold the control button down, use my scroll wheel to go in and out, drag over here, scroll out, scroll back in. So this makes it easy to edit and move your parts around and see all your parts and your schematic symbols and stuff. I can also come up here to View and say Fit the document. That fits the whole sheet. And I can go to View and say Fit all the objects. And now you see it fits just the parts that I've put in there. Alright, I think this will probably do it for this video. We've placed our headers, placed our B and C connector. Oh, look at that, I made a mistake. This guy is not connected. I've left this pin floating. I'm glad we saw that. So what do we want to do? Well, generally, on this circuit, my non-inverting input is going to be ground. So I'm going to take a ground here. Now I could place it here and run a wire, or I can just place it here. It doesn't look quite as good visually now, right? I have that thing. So I'm going to grab it. It's touching that pin 5, but I can grab it over here and move it down, right? Let's see. I don't want it to touch the other one. That looks good. There. Now I have a complete circuit. I'll do a save all. It's always good to go over your circuit and look at it again and make sure it has all the connections that you need. Let's see, this op amp I can move up here. I can rename that to something else. It says op amp now. I can rename it. There we go. Save it all. Okay, I think we'll stop here. This gives you the first basic overview of how to put parts on your schematics. We'll go over other stuff later. We'll talk about libraries and different parts and all.